Howdy guys, Jake here. So today we have a really flat ocean. It's a little overcast, but it's still made for some really great diving. So this is actually a 2-day dive. The first few clips are going to be the first day when I was just scouting out the area. I didn't really find too much on the first day, but I wasn't looking too hard either. One thing I did find pretty early on was this giant spool of plastic cable, which I wasn't too happy to find buried down there. So I'm swimming along the bottom here and this pretty reef fish catches my attention. And while I'm sitting here staring at him, there's a mutton snapper staring at me over my shoulder, and I spook him when I look up here and he swims off. Kind of planted down and waited a good 30 seconds for him to come back, but he never did. So as I'm swimming down here, I'm just looking around underneath the rocks, seeing if there's anything interesting. Just a bunch of the natural mangrove, margates, and porkfish that always swim around here. When I turn around, I have this school of 3 sheepshead come in, and they were all shooting size, but I had my eyes on something a little bit bigger today. Have that mutton snapper in the background. He was way undersized, so I didn't even bother looking at him too much. But I'm looking for that nice prize mutton snapper, which I never ended up finding here on the first day. So as I'm swimming down here, I see these couple of sheepshead, and once again they were shooting size, but I had my eyes on something bigger. And it's a good thing I didn't shoot him, as I saw this mutton snapper here on my right. Now, a lot of times, the first shot may be the easiest, but it's not the best, because if I were to shoot one of these sheepshead, this mutton snapper surely would have gone away. Mutton snapper was undersized, but I still bunkered down, tried to get him to come to me. I'm making some grunting noises, just sitting very still. Had no intention of shooting him, but I just wanted to make sure I had the concept down of getting the snapper close to me. As you can see, he came right over to me, and then I let him swim off. So I saw this shell from the surface, going down to pick it up, and I found another one real close by in this next clip. I always check my shells for hermit crabs, because it's not very fun when you're driving home and a crab starts walking around your car. So I'm going to load up my pole spear here, and the band actually ends up popping. It was just the end of its lifetime. So, kind of mourn it, hold it in my hands, and then I realized I could probably just tie a knot and fix this, so nothing a little overhand knot couldn't fix. Right there, you can hold tension on it, beautiful. Went back to diving. So my GoPro actually ends up dying before the end of this clip here, but I see this sheepshead and these 2 lane snapper on the right. I end up going for the sheepshead instead of the lane snapper just because it's been a while since I had lane. So I end up shooting that sheepshead, but GoPro is dead, so now we enter the second day of diving. I see this rock ledge over here, and I'm hoping to ambush whatever's on the other side, so I'm swimming real low, and then I pop my head up when I'm close enough. And I surprised these 2 sheepshead here, but it's the beginning of the day, not trying to take home a sheepshead so early. Once again, got my eyes on a nice snapper. Here I'm down, looking in between cracks and crevices, and I see this mangrove snapper that was probably an inch undersized, but he was being a little too comfortable around me. Had to give him good old finger guns. So going down again, looking at all the caves and crevices, and I actually end up finding a massive lobster on the left here. He was probably head to tail, probably the size of my torso, not including his antennas. And thankfully the GoPro records GPS data here, so I'm definitely coming back lobster season for him. It's kind of hard to tell his size, but he was absolutely massive. So I've already been under for about a minute here, and I have this nice slot snook that swims up on my left. Snook are actually illegal to spearfish, which I have no clue why, but prevents me from shooting him here. On this dive I saw this really cool cave from the surface, going down, and it was even cooler looking through it. If I wasn't so claustrophobic, I probably could have swam through to the other side, but it was a little too tight of a space. Nothing too interesting down there, but just some really neat structure. Now, when I take my duck dive here, I actually didn't notice this big snook till I was on my way down. He gets spooked when he sees me and just makes a little dart off. See a couple mangrove snapper under this ledge, but all a little too tiny. Right here I dove down on this massive school of sheepshead. There's a couple keeper sizes in here, but they were barely legal, so let them move on and get bigger. On this dive, I see these real pretty barjacks. I've been wanting to try one of these guys out for a while. These were pretty good size, but they're too pretty for me to shoot right now. Now once again, I've been under for about a minute here, swimming along, looking under ledges. And I see this dog snapper up top. Now, these guys, in order to be legal, you have to take them at 12 inches. This guy probably was 12 inches, but let him get a little bit bigger instead of taking a shot. Here I find this massive split in the rocks I kept sawing fish coming in and out of. I was hoping there'd probably be some lobster or a big snapper hiding in there, but there wasn't. I found these two pretty shells right there at the base. I'm looking around, making sure there's not a moray eel that's going to snatch my hand when I stick it down there. But I grab these two shells and come back up to the surface. It's always a joy for me to find shells. Saw this barracuda as I was changing spots, looking around for fish. I was chasing after him here, but he didn't like that. The predator became the prey and he went ahead and ran off. So I make a dive on these two sheepshead here. I saw one from the surface that I thought might have been keeping size. He was 14 inches, which is legal to take, but still a little on the small side, so I was thinking about taking a shot on him here. He ends up coming right in front of me, but I decide not to. And then I'm trying to measure him up with the tip of my spear here. The tip of my spear is about 15 inches, and he was a little shorter than it, so he was 14 inches. Take another dive on some sheepshead here. I go ahead, plant myself down on the rocks, and I'm purposely not looking at them, trying to let them be as calm as possible and stay right there, and then I ever so slowly take aim on the biggest one. This guy was about 16 inches. I go ahead and keep pushing him into the rocks here to make sure he doesn't come off the spear. I ended up shooting him through the gills into his skull. I actually had a really nice shot. Now, if you don't enjoy watching fish get stabbed in the brain and bled, then I'd probably skip forward here, but stabbing the fish in the brain, you go ahead and put him out of his misery. Then after this, we run the knife along his gills to bleed him. When you bleed your fish, it's less of a bloody mess when you're filleting it, and it also makes the meat taste a little better. The blood is what gives gray spots when you cook it, and also what blends a lot of the fishy taste. Last dive here before my GoPro gave out, found 2 lobsters hanging upside down on this rock, kind of caught me off guard. But after this, we go ahead and cut to me filleting the fish when I got home. So I already scaled this guy at the beach. I find it easier to scale them in the water than getting scales over your cleaning station. Finding the soft meat right behind its head, and then I'm lifting up its pectoral fin, and then making a nice diagonal cut down it. This guy actually had an abnormally large rib cage, so had a real sharp diagonal cut there. Next I'm using that cut, kind of curving it with my knife to find the backbone, and I'm just running down the backbone, keep poking it with the tip of my knife. When you get far enough down, just go over top the backbone, take off all the tail meat. Next I'm going to separate the fillets from the fish here. Once again running along the backbone, then when I can see the backbone I'm going to run over top of it, break all the bones that's connecting the fish there. Now I'm going to fight with this abnormally large rib cage, just kind of keep sliding the knife over it, disconnecting as much meat as I can. You can enjoy my dog trying to eat my pineapple plants in the background there. Now a good judge of your filleting skills if you can hold up a fish to the light and see through to the other side. Did a good enough job. Next we're going to go ahead and skin the meat. Start by the tail meat section. Just run your knife under a little bit. Then you want to do a lot more work with your left hand than the knife hand. So just go ahead and wiggle in that back and forth, separating it from the skin. Now I don't live by a dock, so all my fish carcasses go over to my banana trees. Just dig a little hole and cover them up so you can't smell them. But over time it's starting to yield some real nice bananas. These guys will probably be ready in a couple months. Now to begin here, you start by taking the cat off the table. Now we move on to preparing our fish. I'm going to do some fried fish and corn succotash here. So number one thing to do when you're cooking fish is pat it dry with paper towels. Just makes every part of cooking it easier. Next thing I'm going to do is clean it up a little bit. I got this thin tail piece that's not going to cook evenly, take that off. And then on this other piece, cutting out some of the bloodline. Bloodline is once again what adds a little bit of that fishy taste, so cut that out, and animals love this, so I give it to my cats, or if you have dogs that like it even, you can do that. Go ahead, cut that in half, give it to the tax collectors that are sitting by. After that, I cut up about 1/3 of an onion, threw it in some oil to simmer and soften it up a little bit. Now you're going to add as much spinach as your heart desires, just always add a little bit more than you think, because this stuff cooks down crazy small. After you got all that added, stir it around constantly for about 5 minutes so you got a nice pile of spinach. Then on the side I got a rice cooker going, making cilantro lime rice, so throw a little cilantro, a little cumin, and a little bit of lime inside the rice cooker. Next, slightly salt and pepper your fish, and then I have flour and breadcrumbs along with 2 beaten eggs. Also a little bit of salt and pepper in the flour. Go ahead and cut up all your fish into bite-sized pieces, and then pretty simple battering process. Gonna dump it into the beaten eggs, flip it over, make sure it's coated, take it out, dump it into the flour, flip it over a couple times, make sure it's coated. I'd probably advise using a fork or something other than your fingers for this, but I was too tired and too stubborn to do that, so I just got a big mess on my fingers. Just go ahead and dredge it back into the egg after the flour and throw it in the breadcrumbs. These are normal breadcrumbs, you're welcome to use whatever ones you have available, but I didn't want panko flavored fish, so I just went ahead and put some bread in the toaster oven for about 15 minutes on the lowest setting, and then crush it up in a bag to get breadcrumbs. Now, somehow I managed to lose the footage of me actually cooking the fish, but just got some nice hot oil going on the stove. You want to go about halfway up the fish and then cook it for 2 minutes on both sides. And then when your cilantro lime rice is done cooking, go ahead, add some fresh corn, some fresh tomatoes, and then mix it in with the spinach and onions, and you get something like this. Now, this sheepshead meat was actually super sweet. I think it's because there's probably a lot more crabs on the reef they were at, and a lot of fish. How it tastes is based on its diet. but this was some of the best sheepshead I've ever had. Now, thank you for watching all the way through. I try to go diving as often as possible, so if you guys want to subscribe, YouTube will go ahead and notify you whenever I got a new video up. Hogfish and grouper season also opened up yesterday, so hopefully I'll have some videos coming up of me catching and cooking those.